All right, today on the Lockdown, episode 16, we have former Dual International NRL star Reni Maitua. Thanks for coming on, Reni.
No, all good, mate. Happy to be here. Happy to have a chat. Not much else going on in the world right now, so no, I'm happy to be here, brother.
Sorry for the fuck up. 45 minutes I've been trying to get this going.
Mate,
This is fucking embarrassing.
No, all good, bro. All good.
What have you been up to, mate? Coronavirus. What's been happening with that lockdown?
Mate, abiding by the rules, trying to keep social distancing as much as I can. It's been a bit hard, you know. Mum and Dad are getting a little bit older now. Dad's health isn't the best, but just doing what I can to survive. Unfortunately, I work in the cleaning industry, and I manage, some venues in the eastern suburbs, and the company actually lost 700 venues pretty much overnight. So working a couple of days a week, trying to go surfing, but haven't run into the lifeguards. The beaches are finally open, but that's the only thing that keeps me sane these days is the ocean. And besides that, mate, just surviving like everyone else.
Run-ins with the lifeguards. Did you just get into a bit of shit the other day? I heard Jimmy Olsen got chucked out. Is that true?
Mate, I'm actually a lifeguard. I'm a Randwick City Council lifeguard, and I had a little bit of a run-in with one of the supervisors. But look, at the end of the day, everyone's come to their senses, and the coastal walks had thousands of people on them, and the ocean is good for people's cleansing of the soul and their mental health. And surfing's one thing that is really something that I grew up doing, and a lot of our mates. And we found a little bit of a loophole. We could jump off the rocks to go surfing as long as we jumped off the rocks and went in on the rocks. But it didn't sit well with the lifeguards, and it's all good. All the lifeguards around our beaches are all our mates. So it's all been sorted now, and we're back in the ocean, but there's no waves. So
I heard Ev was giving everyone up. He was the one bringing them up and giving everyone up. Is that true?
He's the informant of
yeah.
It's something we were brought up not, something that was definitely drummed into us at a young age not to do. But yeah, Evan Fawkes he's definitely on the lifeguard side.
Mate, how are you staying fit? You're looking fit. You're looking pretty lean. Everyone else
mate, it's all diet for me. I actually put on a lot of weight. I went over to the Toronto Wolfpack and had a little stint with the Canadian side. And people, your listeners, people that have been to America or the North America know that everything comes in bulk over there. So you order extra large. You order a large Big Mac meal and you get 2 liters of Coke. And I put on a lot of weight. I blew out to about 116 kilos, which is about 14 kilos heavier than what I played. And the last sort of 14 months, it's all about my diet. I don't particularly enjoy going to a gym or anything like that, but surfing, like I mentioned before, is what keeps me fit. I love to muck around on the pads and have a little bit of a box, but I've trained the majority of almost half my life. So if you ask me to go to a gym, it's like asking a bricklayer to go and lay bricks. I just don't enjoy it anymore. And I like to find other ways to keep fit and stay healthy.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of. I hate the gym. I've always hated the gym.
I'm not a big
fan
of
circuit. Been doing a lot of circuit at my gym.
Yeah.
It's like 45 on, 15 off, or 40 on, 10 off.
When I first came into my career, it was all about who could lift the heaviest and go out on the field and run Ks on end. And what I found now is, as science has become more advanced in terms of sport, and what's relative to rugby league is that sort of that hit training, those 45-second efforts, with those 15-second breaks. It's far more relative to rugby league, and that's probably the training I enjoy doing, especially at my age. Getting close to 40 now, I find that 20-25 minutes of training is more than enough for me. And all the old injuries seem to flare up here and there with the harder I train. There's one thing is that, people say, even though you're doing 15-20 minutes of training, you don't have to push your body to the limit. But it's just, I don't feel like I've trained unless I'm nearly, about to throw up. It's just something that's been drummed into me for too long. And it's actually a bad habit to have, because then my body's a mess the next day when I need to go to work. But it is what it is.
If you're doing that shorter stuff, like I'm the same as you. I'm half an hour. Completely fuck myself.
Yep.
My heart rate stays over 180 the whole time. And, you know, that half an hour is better than a 1 hour fucking run where your heart rate sits at 150 or, yeah, I do some certain sprints over an hour with 2 or 3 minute breaks. It's not relative to the game, I don't believe. What you said was right. It's those hit 45 on, 15 off, second efforts, triple efforts. That's what it's all about, you know?
Effort on effort. I think a set of 6 goes for about, well, when I played at the back end of my career, it was about 52 seconds. So a lot of the trainers you do 52-second efforts and then, you know, with a short recovery. So to simulate a set of 6 in the game. So a lot of, you know, you do need those Ks in your legs. I think pre-seasons are far too long for the players these days, but until, you know, they really figure out, you know, they've got far bigger problems the game at the moment.
Oh, fuck.
You know, I think, you know, we could go and talk about rugby league all day, but I think I think pre-season's too long. I think the season's too long. For the money they're earning, I think they should be getting way more money. And because, you know, once you retire and you feel the way I feel, or a lot of the players, I was fairly lucky. I only had a few. Well, I had some major surgery. I had about 4 or 5 reconstructions, but I was fairly lucky with my knees and my shoulders and things like that. I had, you know, bad ankles and bad groins and bad backs, but I came out of the game fairly unscathed. But you look at the players that came before me, obviously Jimmy Dimmick and all those guys that played and the guys before them, you see them getting around like old men in their 40s and 50s, and that's something that, you know, you really got to think about if that's what I want my kids to do when I have kids one day. It's a tough sport, and it's not for everyone, rugby league. You know, it's a game that we can critique and sit back and say that bloke's soft or he's soft, he should do this and he should do that. But if it was an easy game, everyone would play. So,
mate, the game's become a commodity-driven sport, so it's not about a sport anymore. It's about what you're worth as a player. And then once you've got to that level where they can't use you anymore, they fucking flick you. And that's the bad thing about it. It's become money-driven. Obviously, it's billion-dollar fucking sports deals, like TV deals. It's what's going to happen, but it's not right because you guys are being basically fucking pimped out to what you can get and then fucked off.
Everyone's expendable, and that's something that I learned definitely learned it in the last year of my career at the Bulldogs. When I was kind of lucky where I got the old school style of footy, and then I got the back end of how it's become more of a business. You know, 2014, I still had another year of my contract, but from a business decision, and I was very bitter about it for a number of years. But as time's gone on, I understand the decision the administration made, and I was moved on at 30, 31 with no academic sort of. I had nothing behind background. Yeah, I had nothing. Sorry, mate. I had nothing behind me to go into life after footy. So I learned the hard way, but that's my fault, you know. I had plenty of years during my career to set myself up for life after footy. I dragged it out as long as I could, and I ended up in the UK, and I'm sort of paying the consequences for it now.
But you blame yourself, Reni, right? But what assistance did you get, or what direction did you get from the Bulldogs, or from Para, or from your UK club? What did they have a welfare officer that helped you with your courses, helped you with life after footy, work? Did they help you with that shit?
It was all very new to the NRL, the education side of things. You know, it was a transition, not just for sport, but for the world when social media came in and access to players. You know, there was no Twitter, there was no Facebook, there was no Instagram when I first started. The only things that people had access to players was through forums. So when it came to education, it was all new territory for the NRL. So they weren't sure how much money to throw into a club, or how much a club should push a player into education. At the end of the day, you're there to win games, and the coach. Yeah. The coach is there to win games too. That's he's got his career on the line as well. So they're not going to just give up training sessions to make players go and do university courses or do education when they can get an extra hour or extra 2 hours out of a player's performance and making them as prepared as possible going into a game. So it's a balance that I don't think the world of sport has really worked out yet. It's just a common denominator across the world with every sport that I see of players going down a really tough path when it comes to retirement. So
we've talked about this. I think I talked about it with Moses, right?
Yep.
And in America, the NBA, NFL, I'm not sure if NHL or baseball, but they get, I think it was 50% of their earnings put aside, and it's given to them as a, what do they call it, like a health,
a retirement fund,
a retirement fund,
yeah.
So it's released real slowly to them.
Yeah. Well,
why don't we? Again, our money's not comparable to theirs. You're on the max blokes on $1 million, where their minimum blokes on $1 million. But don't you think there should be something, brought in where the finance will look after better, like some type of super fund?
Well, we do have a retirement fund. When I started, it was $2.5, maybe $2,000 a year that was put aside. Now the players get about $15,000 put aside a year. There is things in place, but if you don't know how to look after your money, or if you're not taught financially, then it's kind of worthless in the end. When you come out of the game and then the way I like to explain it is that when I retired, it was like leaving school again with far more responsibility. So I still had mortgage payments. I still had car payments. I still had all these responsibility, and I was earning an eighth of what I was earning as a player. I didn't know how to do an ABN. I didn't know how to pay bills online. These are just simple things that I can be taught in the school system, and then taught throughout a rugby league career. I think clubs have a responsibility, but I think managers have just as big a responsibility. You're paying them 6% for what? They do a deal and then you don't hear from them again to the end of the year or the end of the 3 years. So, you can point the finger at a lot of people. At some point, I have to take responsibility for my actions and what I want to do. But when you're in the simulation of rugby league, the vortex of rugby league, nothing matters outside of what you do that week and what you do on that weekend. And then all of a sudden it finishes. And then you just think, whoa, fuck, I'm in the real world now. What do I do now? So we can all point and blame, and there's certain sections of our game that can definitely be better. But who takes up that slack? Who does it?
Yeah.
Is it the schools? Is it the clubs? Is it your manager? Is it yourself? Everyone has a responsibility. And again, we're still trying to figure it out. I don't think it'll be a while before we figure it all out.
How many people like yourself have come out of the game? Have you seen they're just not transitioning well? They don't understand. Like, they've been institutionalized like yourself. How many do you reckon, percentage-wise?
Right now, out of the players that I played with and that I know of, I'd say 75% of us are struggling when it 100%. Comes to 75 easy. There's that 25% that, probably had good support from maybe family, but might have had that manager that was really intelligent with their money. But I'd say 75% of us are still struggling to this day. What makes things different for me is that I've accepted the situation I'm in. I haven't kicked up a stink and thought, well, I deserve better than what I've got. I did this, I did that. No one's going to get me out of the hole that I'm in. I've had 3 or 4 years of retirement now where I've only just got my first full-time job in the last 2 months. It was jumping from job to job, whether it be picking up a shovel, working at the NRL, doing some stuff with Fox Sports. I've never been able to nail one specific role. And, thankfully I've got some good friends around me, and I got given a job that's my first full-time job since I retired. And it's kind of sad in a way, but it is what it is. And a lot of players don't accept the situation they're in. And that's when we see players go down a slippery slope very quickly. And unfortunately, I've got a few friends that are in that same boat.
Yeah, well, I've said on the show recently, I bumped into one of the big name boys from the area that retired last year, and he just wasn't happy. He goes, "Mum, I'm coaching, involved in coaching, but I'm not happy. But what else do I do?" And that's the fucking problem, I think there's there's more responsibility should be put on NRL and managers to make sure the direction you going post football is always fucking concrete.
Yeah, and again, Fidel, it's balance, and it's finding the right coach that understands that if he balances his players in terms of how much they train and how much education they get and win games, then you're going to get a better result. But it's when it's so driven by success, it's all about winning. It's not about you're like we said, you're expendable. As soon as you retire, you'd like to think they care about you, but a year or 2 years out in the track, they don't give a shit.
No.
And going back to the dressing room, I felt like I'm still trying to adapt into society in terms of understanding the humour of my own friends that I've known for 25 years. I feel like an outcast sometimes because the humour of the dressing room is always different to the humour of your friends that you grew up with. I spent so much time with my footy teammates. They're pretty much my family. Outside of your immediate family, that's the people you go to war with. I look at rugby league as going to war. You're in the trenches with these guys. You put your body through a lot of pain. You judge every day of training. You judge every game on a weekend by the public. That you do become institutionalized, and then when you come out of that system, it's where do I fit in? Where is my place in society? And now you still carry the burden of some habits that you had that don't fly with people in reality of the dressing room. So it's you got to grow up really quickly, and it's a learning process for a lot of rugby league players every day. And unfortunately, like we said, a lot of blokes don't work it out and they don't figure it out because you're told when to eat, when to train, how hard to play. Your defence wasn't right. The lines you ran were the wrong lines. You're just always getting critiqued of everything you do. You're told how to become a better person become a better player, and then you get thrown into society with no education and you just feel like that your place within society isn't what it used to be. And it's a scary thought. It is a scary thought for a lot of people. So I do feel like we do have an obligation. Someone like myself who's probably, I speak openly about the situation that I'm in. I'm there to help people, but I can't help anyone until I've helped myself. And I'm still in a situation where I've still got to, work fairly hard. Like it doesn't accumulate the hours in the day or how hard you work paying the mortgage. It's still there's another bill. You throw yourself in so much debt as a player, and then when you don't have that money coming in, it's just, oh shit, I'm going to have to sell. And you don't realise in my head is that I'm lucky that I've walked out of the game with a property that's worth a fair bit of money, that if I sell it, I'm still going to be in a good situation, but I feel like a loser. I feel like I've lost. And this is anything that I've left the game with is like a trophy to me. That's what you earn over your career. And I fucking wasted a lot of money. I'm lucky to walk away from the game with just one investment property. So,
well, you said 75% of them are the same as you. So you can't feel too alone. It's a common factor. It happens to everyone. Yeah. Basically everyone. So I've heard the same story from every fucking player I've known. Every single player. Every single one.
Yeah, it's a sad thought. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like I know you're saying that everyone has the onus, but the managers and the clubs and the NRL need to have more onus on it because it's in the major corporations overseas that run the sporting identities. It's their job. That's the way it works. So your manager is a financial advisor. It's not a manager that knows how to read a contract. He's a fucking financial advisor.
Absolutely, and that's the problem with there's probably one manager in particular. I won't mention names that I've had a chat with him. I bumped into him, and he's he doesn't saturate the market and have 100 players. He concentrates on 20 players, and he makes sure those 20 players are doing well for themselves. And then obviously he's doing well for himself as well. Where you got managers that'll go and get 150 players and only look after the top 2 or 3.
Might give a fuck.
I don't think they give a fuck. They just don't have the time to look after the other 147. Yeah. So, it's a conversation we can have over and over. It's just it's not about putting the blame on anyone, but it's at some point people need to stand up and take responsibility that, they're essentially kids coming out of school. We're babies coming out of school that don't know nothing about life. Even moving into your 20s, I didn't work shit out till I was 30. We have a responsibility as a game, as a community, to look after these people. Don't put them up on these pedestals. Yeah, we can put them up on a pedestal and enjoy what they do on a weekend, but understand that when they come out of this game, they're going to need our help. So that's kind of my opinion on things at the moment.
Bro, you grew up in so you're a Maddo boy, yeah, but you grew up around the beach. Is that right?
I'm Daceyville, Kingston boy. Daceyville, how's those?
But you're one of the Bra boys, but yeah.
Yeah. Look, one thing about Maroubra is that because I love surfing so much, is that my parents always knew where I was. Regardless of the stigma that it might have, it's not an overly tough place. It wasn't. We were pretty lucky that we didn't go up around guns or knives. It was always we were just hooligans, just little shits running around the beach chasing girls, underage drinking and getting into a few scraps. So, Maroubra's been good and bad for me. There's definitely some people I look up to that, looked after me when I was younger, and it's something that will be with me for the rest of my life. At times I've tried to stay away from the Maroubra name. There's been periods of the beach that don't sit with me morally or the way that I was brought up. But my inner sanctum of friends, my close Maroubra friends, are people that are good people, come from good families, and that I look up to, and that have been there for me throughout my whole career. Unfortunately, there's a few people that give the place a bad name, but it's definitely somewhere. It's a place that you had to grow up fairly quickly, and it was and like I said, it was somewhere where my mum and dad always knew where I was. I was there surfing. I wasn't out stealing cars or graffitiing or doing anything. We're always at that beach, and we're all probably our own worst enemies and picked up bad habits, but like any sort of teenagers.
Yeah, you say bad habits, but I see it different. I see so much success come out of the area, considering how hard everyone grew up and how hard everything life was for everyone. I spoke with Richie Vass and Ev about this. What is it about the competitive side of Maroubra that makes the best come out of you guys? Like everyone's so talented in different ways, but what is it about Maroubra that made everyone so competitive and want to beat each other and then become ultimately better athletes?
I guess it was just like you said, he's just competing with each other, whether it be who could get the drunkest when you're a kid or who could get the most girls. Then it turned to sport. Someone that's in my age bracket is Kobe Abbott, and he won the first ever comp in Tahiti when he was 17, which is we idolised that because he put eyes on the beach, and that was something to aspire to. Obviously, you got Mark Matthews and Richie Vass, both big wave surfers, and Vass got into his MMA career, and there was me, John Sutton, Damon Alatovio that took the Rugby League path. But at the end of the day, it all came back to the beach. It all came back to competing amongst one another. And I'd never really thought about it that way, Fiddy, is that there is a lot of talented people that came out of Maroubra. Evan Fawkes, another big wave surfer. And I think that the mentality of growing up at that beach and competing with each other and who could outdo each other pushed us in a competitive nature down the right professional path as well. So I never really considered that the beach made us who we were on the field or in the octagon for Richie or in the surf for the boys. There was always that trying to impress your mate mentality, and it still exists today.
That's good because it's created so much success. Hopefully the young fellas start to follow suit because I know a couple of them are getting a bit wayside. So me and Kurt have been doing a lot of boxing with the young lads, but let's hope their fucking mind switch on again.
Yeah, mate, that's 100% right, and that's what scares me the most is that because they've grown up and Maroubra's had this, when the movie came out and we became Hollywood. And, Russell Crowe is narrating a story about a bunch of larrikins from the beach. and put us up on this pedestal. And then when the younger generation started coming through, they tried to go harder, and they did go harder. There was a generation that just went, oh, I'm going to outdo the older boys. And then they ended up getting locked up. And then it went through a period where the pub reopened and there was a lot of people drinking, and then the communities come back together. But then you've got this young group coming through. I've seen them boxing at your gym. Yeah. And I love that you guys are doing something for those kids, and they're learning a discipline, but they're at that fork in the road now where they can go either way, and that's where every teenager around Sydney or around Australia is. When they get to that age and they get to that fork in the road, they can go one way or the other. And when you go that wrong way, it can end up really bad. And I don't want the beach to go back to where the way it was. It was far worse for the older boys than it was for me. We were just, it was all about chasing girls and surfing and just being just little shits basically. And that's what growing up is all about. And when it turns to crime, and that's when you really need to start thinking about how you can change your community.
Yeah, they're on the thin line right now, these kids, but they all seem pretty level-headed, to be honest. I'm looking forward to see a lot of them growing up, to be honest. They're going to be becoming good young men. Just got to stay on top of them, I think.
Yeah, I mean, again, like they're in an age group where they're all trying to outdo each other. That's what happens when you're 16, 17, 18. You become competitive with each other, and who can go harder than the next. And hopefully it's in a good way. And with the boxing especially, I mean, that's a discipline that you got to be all in or don't do it at all. I mean, if you want to have a proper career out of it, I did it for 8 weeks and had one fight, and it was the hardest 8 weeks of my life. I thought.
I want to go into that as well. I want you to talk about that in detail.
Yeah, mate. I mean, if you want to kick off with it now, I mean,
tell us about the fight. The only one fight. Why only one fight?
What, mate? It was something I always had to do. I loved boxing from a young age. I remember standing out. I remember watching Costa Zoo fights out the front of the Coogee Bay. I'd be watching through the window. That's how much I love boxing. Dad loved boxing, and we always held the pads for each other, and it's something that we always loved, but never really got right into it. I mean, I remember when I got in trouble a fair bit when I was playing footy, and Johnny Lewis, who was like a legend to us, Jeff Fiddy, he took me for a boxing session, and it was that hard. I thought, fuck that, I don't want to go back to that gym. And then it was this, playing my career, and, Sonny couldn't punch the pads at all. And then he went on and won a New Zealand title, and, people have their opinion of what Sonny is as what he's done as a boxer. But until you've entered that ring, you haven't got a leg to stand on. So, a couple of years after I retired, I had a meeting with Billy Hussein, and we met in a cafe in Brighton, and he said, "Oh, look, I'm interested in, would you like to have a fight?" And I said, "Look, if I'm ever going to do it, I'm going to do it now." I said, I don't have much money, Billy. And he goes, "Look, I'll train you for free. Give me 8 weeks, and you'll have a fight night in Hurstville." And I was all in, and that's sort of one thing with me, is that I'm all in or I'm all out. It's just if it's training hard, I'm all in. If it's training soft, I'm going to train soft. If it's drinking, I'll go for 3 days. There's no balance. There's no in between with me. So 8 weeks, I gave him 8 weeks, and the anxiety of going to a gym out and punch bowl every day, and being around actual fighters and sparring and just being, there was all eyes on me. Let's see how this footy player goes, and he'd call me in through the middle of the day and say, "You're sparring at 3 o'clock," and then my heart rate would go, and I found out a lot about myself and what I was made of, and if I had that sort of killer instinct. And I didn't have a lot of killer instinct in me. If I hit someone too hard in sparring, I'd want to say sorry to them. And Billy would always be into me. He'd be riding me all the time. "You got to fucking, where's the mongrel?" I said, I left the mongrel on the field. Like I did 10 years of that. I don't have it in me anymore. He goes, "Well, if you don't have it in you, you're not going to fucking last in this game." So I gave it my all. It was the hardest 8 weeks of training I'd ever done. The fight night was actually the easiest part. It's when I felt the most comfortable. It's when I felt the most comfortable.
Walking out, how did you feel? Because
it's
the worst feeling of my life. I can't explain it. My first fight when I walked out was the worst fucking feeling I've ever had in my life.
I felt ready. I just felt really prepared. I felt like the hardest fight I had was the 8 weeks before that. The sparring sessions, being around actual boxers, that was the hardest part for me. The support I had from all the Hussein brothers in the sheds before, Willie, Mason, and Tonga, and all that. All the boys were in the sheds, and then when I walked out, I just felt comfortable. There's some certain things I do differently when I look back on it. I didn't fight a world champion, but I fought a guy that had, an amateur career and a pro career. Regardless, he'd been in that ring before.
Who did you fight?
I can't even remember his name. It was a guy from Reesbury. Yeah, I forgot. I mean, he'd had an amateur career and he'd had a few pro fights. I'd actually sparred him a few weeks or maybe a month before that, and he just kept leaning on me, and I didn't understand the ring,
the wrestle
or anything like that. And I gassed out really quickly, and then by the time I got into the ring, I felt fairly comfortable, and I probably blew a bit of a gasket in the first round. I remember walking back to my stall after the first round, thinking I'm fucked, and Billy looked at me and said, "Look, just work the jab in the second round." And towards the end of the second round, I just sort of clipped him with a couple of right hands, and his corner threw the towel in. So I wanted it to go to the third round. I was actually disappointed we didn't go to a third round. I was because I sat down on my stool and the towel came in. And I thought, fuck, I wanted to go one more round, but it's something I'll consider again. But I've got so much going on in my life at the moment in terms of what direction I want to go and starting a family and all that. But I don't kind of have time to put 6 weeks, 8 weeks aside to concentrate on a fight because, as you know, you got to be all in. You can't just. It's like you don't muck around with boxing. You don't muck around with.
It's such an unforgiving sport. It's disgusting. Oh. It's great. Don't get me wrong. The strongest athletes, mentally and physically, are boxers. You've been there. But it's so lonely, and it gives you nothing back. It's so hard to make it. I tell people, unless it's about a dream or you're trying to build your mindset, don't worry about it. That's why I give it up. I give it up because I lost my first fight because I wasn't prepared.
Yep.
I won the next few, and then it was just because my mindset was I worked hard for it. But I knew I wasn't going to be champion, so I'll give it up.
It was the whole thing was a roller coaster of emotion, Like I'd go to sleep thinking about fighting. I'd go to sleep thinking about getting knocked out. I'd go to sleep thinking about winning. I would go into training some days and feel like shit and train like shit. Or I'd go in feeling like shit and then train the house down. I couldn't find a balance. It was just too much emotion. It was up and down, up and down, up and down. But at the end of the day, it was the best experience I'd ever had. And it's something that no one can ever take away from me. Until you make that walk, don't ever judge anyone because it's fucking the hardest one. It's the hardest thing I've ever had to do. Regardless if I was 34 at the time, 35, fairly old, or if I was 17 or 18, 19, you'd have the same emotion. And it's you got to be a special kind of person to be a world champion. And that's why I respect not only boxers, but MMA fighters, people that compete. It's anyone that does any sort of individual sport. It's fucking lonely.
But imagine you at the age of 18, you had a fight and experienced what you did in post-career. Imagine you took that into your football career. Could you imagine that? Your mentality?
The discipline side of things, the early in my career is that, I like to be an aggressive kind of player. When I was in the zone, I had a lot of success early in my career. So I had a lot of mongrel in me, a lot of build-up anger as a teenager, not to say it was in a tough way, but because I was a small forward, if I had to bring a different element to my game, and naturally I was a little bit aggressive, a little bit borderline, a bit of a mug. And that's what the Bulldogs loved about me when I started my career. I was the 25th player in the Bulldog squad to get picked. There was no chance of me really playing in the first game of the season in 2004 until the coaches actually seen me play a trial against the Dragons in Canberra in 2003-04 in the preseason. And Steve Folkes pulled me inside and said, I really like what you did in that game. You played really aggressively. So that was kind of my niche. That was something different that I had to other players or back rowers at the time. It was my aggression. And then, Glenn Hughes tore his hamstring the day before round 1 in 2004, I got called into the side, and then I didn't ever look back. So,
Mate, like you said, you come in 2004.
yep.
You had a really solid year, right? Obviously, ended up you going to the grand final and getting up.
Yeah.
We had Moses on last week, and he told me the best piece of advice he's ever got from anyone was from you. And in 2014,
14.
you said to him, mate, don't think this comes along often, because it was his first year as well. It could be your last one. And he said that's the best piece of advice ever been given. How do you feel as a young kid going into a fucking team in your first year getting to the grand final, but taking it out?
I mean, it was everything just happened so fast. Like just a little bit of background. I gave up footy 16, 17, 18, because I got pushed into it so hard from a young age is that I just didn't want to play. I thought, this is not for me. And then I left school and I was in my first year of an apprenticeship, and I was doing a plumbing apprenticeship. There was nothing wrong with it. And Braith and Asta came on the scene sort of 02, and he was killing it. And Braith and I go back to when we were 5 years old. And I thought, and I had this light bulb moment where I was sitting in front of the TV watching him play, and I thought, fuck this, I'm going to give footy another crack. So I went from digging holes to being a sought-after player, because I went back and played for South. And then all of a sudden, 2002, I get signed at the Bulldogs as a 19-year-old. We win a reserve grade grand final. 03, we do well. 04, I'm straight into the first grade side. It all happened like really fast, and I didn't really have time to look back and take a breath. It was just the ride just continued, and I was playing alongside players that I idolised, and it was just a really strange feeling. And timing is everything in rugby league. We just had the perfect balance of players in terms of talent, personality, leadership. We had guys like Steve Price, Steve Reardon, Glenn Hughes. And then you had all the young bulls. Willie Mason was in his third year of first grade, and then you had Sonny Bill, Thurston, Roy Asatasi, myself, Braith, and then it was just a perfect balance. And that team, I look back now, and you don't realise how bloody talented it was. When you got our grand final bench was Jonathan Thurston, Sonny Bill, Roy Asatasi, and Corey Hughes. Steve Price got injured, and I started the game. So at the time, you don't really sit back and appreciate the situation you're in. Going into the grand final, it seems like, to me, it's something you never take away from me. But if I had my time again, and like I said to Moses, I would have done things so much more, so much differently. I would have soaked it all in, because I just thought I was just going to make grand finals for the rest of my career. And I didn't appreciate what the Bulldog team did in 2002 and 2003 to get to that position, to bring us young kids in 2004 to win one. But having said that, greatest day of my life, greatest party of my life, and something that I can hang my hat on and say I've done. There's a lot of players that go through their career and never won a premiership. So,
Mate, did you get Rookie of the Year that year?
No, I didn't get Rookie. I think Sonny got Rookie of the Year that year.
Oh, he did, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Sonny was just a 17, 18-year-old kid that just was a genetic freak. And we all knew how good Sonny was going to be. But Willie Tonga, people forget how good. Willie scored, I think, 17 or 18 tries that year. He got let go from Parramatta, and then he came on the scene and set the world on fire. And, unfortunately for us, there was too many characters or big egos in that team. And we stuck together for that 04, 05, 06, 07. But we should have won far more premierships than we did.
What? Now, you talked about 05, 06, 07. You had a pretty good year 05, but you're injured. Is that why you didn't make State of Origin? How didn't you make State of Origin?
So 05, I was sitting down the pub, and I just had my first sip of a schooner, and I was with two of my best mates, and they said, "You're in the City Country team." I said, "Fuck off." And they said, "Your name just came up on the TV." And within 5 minutes, I get a phone call saying you got called into the City team. So I go into camp. I just come back from a broken ankle in the preseason. I only played one game against the Roosters, get called into the city side. Graham Murray, the late Graham Murray, was the coach. And I didn't, again, I'm just a fucking kid and I don't understand leadership, or I'm just there to have fun. Footy is just, it's my little escape and it's something I enjoy doing. And I'll never forget, he pulled me aside late in the week of 05. He pulled me aside and he said, "You don't realise that people gravitate towards you." And I said, and I'm thinking this, I can't remember exactly who was in the side, but there was a lot of senior players in that team. He goes, "You got something special, and I'm going to keep my eye on you." I broke my ankle in that game, and so 05 was pretty much a write-off year for me. 06, I get called into the Australian team and play a test, and then I break my ankle in that game as well in the first test.
Same ankle?
No, I can't remember, but I've had both my ankles reconstructed. But yeah, I didn't have much luck with rep games, and then 2007 I got called into the New South Wales side as 18th man, and Graham Murray was the coach again, and it's something that still burns me to this day. He's not playing Origin. I think that's the pinnacle of rugby league. I think it's to sit down on the sideline and just to be with that group of men, those New South Wales players, and Denny Badiris was the captain, and spent a few days and seeing how they conducted themselves, what it took out of them physically and emotionally and mentally that week to play Origin against Queensland was a huge eye opener for me. And to sit sideline, like on the bench, and watch that game and see how physical and hard it was. I don't think I was ready for Origin, and some things off the field that crept back into my life, and it just all slipped away. And it's one of the biggest regrets I have is not being able to play Origin. And I think, without trying to toot your own horn, I think I was talented enough to play Origin. I just don't think I put in enough focus, or I didn't have enough desire to, or was willing enough to actually get into that side. If you're going to play Origin, you can't just play Origin off pure talent. There's a lot more that goes into it.
What kind of happened in that 08 period, 07, 08, 09? What happened mentally with you? Like, in the sense of, I'm presuming it's mental because you dropped off real quick. You've gone from one of the best forwards in the game to a mediocre player, which everyone knew you were better than. What happened?
Yeah, we had a bit of a really rough sort of 07. I think injury played a bit of a part in it as well, but I wouldn't use that as an excuse. We went into the season 08. We lost a few players to the Roosters, and all of a sudden we had a side that we couldn't. When I speak about balance, is that if I had an off day, you knew someone else was going to pick up the slack somewhere. And when we lost a few key players in certain positions, the workload increased, but my off-field habits weren't. They didn't align with what was needed for me to be a better player. 04, 05, 06, 07, we'd win games, and then we'd go and drink, and we'd go drink together, and we'd go and have a big night. And then 07, 08, even when we were losing games, I still had that habit of, nah, fuck that, I'm going to go out and party tonight, and when you're in that mentality and in that zone, you don't realise how much it's affecting you and your teammates and everyone around you. And it's a selfish attitude to have, but it was kind of me going back to my late teenage years of, all right, I don't want to be the footy player anymore. I want to be the person that's going out and being social and having fun. And it all caught up with me really quickly. 08. End of 08, 09, I missed a training session, and that's when Todd Greenberg came in as CEO, and I had a run-in with someone at a nightclub and made the papers, and I missed the training session, and then I got sacked. And my selfish attitude was, who are you guys to sack me? I've been here since 02. I've represented my country. I've won a grand final. You wanted to. You guys were buttering me up to be captain of the club one day, and now you're sacking me, and that wasn't really really selfish time in my life that I can say honestly now that I completely deserved, and that was sort of the start of my performance slipping really quickly, and next thing I knew, I was spending 2 years on the sideline.
Well, so you had the 2 years off when you went to Sharks. So you got a bit of shit with a banned substance, right? But
Yep.
not going into what that's about. I couldn't care. But that 2 years off, did that help you physically and mentally?
Not the first 12 months. I was completely off the rails. I was completely so far gone. It wasn't funny. I was working as a lifeguard, but I was so far off the rails. It's, I should have been in rehab. It was 12 months of, what I did to my family and how it affected my father, especially, who's Polynesian and a very proud Polynesian, and how it affected my family was something that still hurts me today. It burns a lot. About 12 months probably about 11 months into my first year of suspension, I just jumped on a plane and went to Thailand. And I said to my manager, I'm going over to Thailand. I'm going to go train there for a month. If I still have that hunger, find me a club. And I spent 4 or 5 weeks in the jungle, trained 6 days a week. And then as soon as I landed back in Sydney, I said, find me a club. The choice I had was Para or Melbourne. In hindsight, I probably should have picked the Storm, but I didn't want to leave. So, it was funny because 2 years out of the game, and then I had fucking Craig Bellamy fly me to Melbourne and show me around the town, and I don't give a fuck what you've done off the field. I like you as a player. I think you're a great asset to the Storm, and this is a club that has a no dickhead policy, and
he's great, eh?
I had him in the Australian camp, but of course he was assistant coach, and I really got along with him. And I'm sitting in Melbourne just thinking, I don't want to be away from my family. I've always been really close to mum and dad and all the nieces and nephews, and I chose Parramatta, but living out in Parramatta was just as far as living in Melbourne for me. But look, I can't thank Parramatta enough for what they did. They gave me an opportunity. Daniel Anderson was the coach at the time. They offered me 2 years. Melbourne offered me 1. And I should have backed myself, but I thought I needed 2 years to develop. I came in halfway through the 2011 season. I played 3 games of reserve grade, got picked in the New South Wales Residents reserve grade side. Yeah. And then Steve Kearney pulled me out of that side. He said, "No, you're playing Friday night against the Broncos." And I thought, it was 2 years of hell, and to get back to that position, I was fairly proud of myself, and I was staying in a hotel. And actually, the day before the game, one of the halves went down, and Steve Kearney said, "You're playing 5'8". So, my first game back was 5'8" on a Friday night against the Broncos, and I knew I'd put in a lot of hard work to get to that point, to get back on that field. There was people that doubted me, and it got back to me, and I just had to prove to them that what I was capable of. And I did have a good back end of that season, and then re-signed for another 2 years at Parramatta. But again, it's just it's something that I've come to accept, is that when I'm in the zone, I'm in the fucking zone. But when I'm off, I'm completely off. There's no in between for me, and it's unfortunate, but that's just the way my chemical makeup is in my brain, and I'm either all in or I'm all out. So that's where things got a little bit rough again for me.
Well, 2011, 2012, I thought 2012 was a good season for you too. 2013 was a bit of a kind of a year, and that wasn't just you; it was your whole fucking team.
Well, the thing is that Ricky came back in as coach, and I let him down at the Sharks originally. He gave me an opportunity at the Sharks when I got sacked from the Dogs, and then when Sticky came in, I just wanted it all. I wanted it all, and I was 30, 31, and I trained my ass off, but my body just wouldn't keep up. I just couldn't keep up with it. I even jumped back on a plane during the Christmas period and went and trained in Thailand for 2.5 weeks. While other players were resting and getting ready for the season, I went and trained for 2.5 weeks in Thailand. Came back underweight, completely knackered. It's just how bad I wanted it. I wanted to impress Ricky. I wanted to do it for my teammates. We came back I'd spoken, my knowledge of the game, I overthink, and I always see things in the game that not necessarily everyone sees. I'm a little bit OCD when it comes to rugby league, so I'd speak up in every video session. I'd always have an opinion in a video session. I'd say what I thought, say what I thought. And then when I was in the dressing room, I'd be trying to have a laugh with the boys. And we went down to Kiama, and Ricky Stewart said to the 27 players that were there who should be captain. Everyone put in a vote. Sticky came to me and he said, 20 of the 27 players have picked you as captain. I said, Stick, I don't want it. I knew deep down that I wasn't a leader. I knew the game and I knew how to have fun, but I wasn't a leader. And that's no fault of Sticky. And I said, Stick, I don't want it. He ended up making myself, Tim Manor and Jared Hayne co-captains.
Yeah.
We started off the season, the first game, we killed the Warriors, we played well and everything went well. And then as soon as everything started to go bad, I became sort of the face of a losing side. I took that to heart and I took it really personally because, like I said, it's like a vortex rugby league. You feel like that is the whole world that you're in, and so any sort of bad publicity you take personally, or any performance, we get beat by 40, and it wasn't through not training hard. We were fucking training hard. We just weren't talented enough to beat the other 15 teams who were in the competition. And it was a slippery slope, and it all came to a head against the Titans in Mudgee. And we had I think Mudgee's at altitude, so it takes a little bit out of the body. And we had a captain's run, and we did an hour and a half session of captain's run the day before the game, full contact. And then we went into the game absolutely zapped, and the Titans were a team that were coming probably just around the same on the table. They beat us by 40, and that was kind of the beginning of the end for me and at Parramatta, because we had a meeting, the captains, and I decided that I needed to go tell Ricky what I thought, and I knocked on his door after we got back from Mudgee, and I said that I thought he did things inappropriately in Mudgee with his side, and I think he needed to take responsibility for the performance that we put in. And we butt heads over that analogy, and then I was one of the 12 players that was no longer needed for the following year. But
how did you feel about that? Like I remember
that hit me hard.
It's not very nice. Did you know about that before earlier? Did you read it in the papers?
I was the only one of the 12 players that knew that I was going to be put on a whiteboard and be sacked for the following year. Ricky called me, and I'll always respect Ricky for this. He called me into the office and said, I'm going to move you on next year. I said, well, I'm not going to leave unless I get looked after financially. And we shook hands like men. We had a good conversation and said, like, this isn't working for each other, and I needed to move on, and I agreed with him. And they had a meeting, and the other 11 players just found out in that meeting that they were no longer needed at Parramatta, and it was kind of sad. But the worst thing for me that really got under my skin was that it was in the media by that afternoon. The media knew that the 12 players, and just probably out of spite, but for standing up for those other 11 players, I sat out the next week as well. I thought, well, if you're going to release this to the media, then fuck you, I'm not going to play on the weekend. And I, in hindsight, I probably shouldn't have done that because I let down the other 16 players that took the field that day. But I thought, I'm going to, the whole situation was handled poorly. I'm not going to play next week. And it was just, it was just a really rough year, and an accumulation of just losses and injury and being the face of a losing side when I had all this success at Canterbury. And it was kind of a perfect storm for me for my mental health to really decline really quickly. And it wasn't just an isolated situation of that year. It goes back to when I was 18, 19. People forget that I nearly ended up doing 5 years in jail in my first year in first grade. There was a lot of things that I've had to overcome that it just became something that was a perfect storm, and it was just one more thing that I just couldn't handle. And that's when, mentally I just had enough, and it was just I went to a really dark place.
Bro, have you been told this before? Because something I reckon this is the first proper conversation I've had with you. We talk in the pub and that, but we never really talk deep. Have you ever been told that you're overcritical on yourself?
I know I am. I absolutely know I am. I don't think that's something that you can just sort of let go of. I think because I think it becomes kind of your makeup as you're growing up. There's this. I've always worried what other people thought, and I've always wanted everything, but wasn't always willing to do the hard work for it. And I mean, it's a tough question to answer. No one's actually ever said it, but I actually know that I do critique myself, and that can be good and bad. I mean, that's what makes me competitive. And if I know when I set my mind to things, I know I can achieve what I need to achieve. But it is definitely a bad trait to have, I guess. And
if it affects you negatively, as it has been, it might be a bad trait. But there are positives to it as well.
Absolutely,
what I'm trying to say is, do you ever sit back and are you a half glass empty or a half glass full kind of guy? Depends on the situation.
Sure. Depends on the situation.
If it's your shout or not. If it's my shout.
I'm all in. Yeah.
No, it's still full. It's still full. It's sweet.
It's still full. It's empty. Go again. Go to the bar. Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say is, if you're a half glass empty kind of guy, that mentality of critiquing yourself so much is always very negative, and it will give you a negative impact all the time. I think if you look, I'm just going off what I'm hearing. You have to look back at what you've achieved in your career, and you could have achieved more. You should have played Origin. I thought you beat yourself up a bit. You're built for Origin. I said this, Clemmer. Your aggression was built for Origin. I think mentally you're fine. Physically you're fine. It's beyond that you have to run in the Origin game to have run onto that field and fucking wear the blue jersey. But you still have achieved so much, and I'm not sure why you keep beating yourself up, because I think you're too good. You're a good bloke. You keep on taking responsibility for everything. Oh, it's my fault, and we should take ownership. But mate, you've done some good shit. You should be so happy with what you've done and where you're headed and how your mentality is. And one of the best things you've done is be public about the mental health of the players. You are one of the most vocal, what can I say? The most vocal, ex-player to come out and say about how dark it can get, and suicide is an option. And mate, no one used to talk about this shit to you, did it? And it's so true.
It wasn't even. It's nothing that ever would come into my head. It's one thing that growing up is that I had a lot of it around me, but I never thought it would affect me. It never was. It was taboo to even think about it. Look, I don't. I think I get a little bit upset when people try to blame certain situations for what they're in, but I don't always know the circumstances of other people. I like to take ownership of everything I've done. I think at the end of the day, everything that I've done in my career is a choice. I had a choice in everything I've done, and whether it be positive or negative. And that's why I probably am a little bit hard on myself, and I'll critique things, because I know that if I'd made a different choice in certain situations, I could have got a far better outcome. And that's where I take, and that's part of my life now. It's a massive part of my life, and what decisions I make now. I'm still making poor decisions. I'm still making, I'm understanding where I'm heading if I make that decision. Whereas before, I never thought of the consequence of my action. There was no compromise. I mean, I just find life every day is a learning experience, and I don't like to blame anyone else, because I always had a good life in terms of my upbringing. Regardless if I came from housing commission or not, mum working 2 jobs, dad working 2 jobs, I still had the best shoes on my feet or the best shirt on my back. I didn't know I was a housing commission kid. So I feel like it's at some point I needed to take ownership of my action, and I can't sit back and ever say or play the blame game, and yeah, that's kind of the way I'm built now. Is that either you take responsibility or if you want to play the blame game, it's a shit trait to have. And I guess yeah, I'm definitely someone who overthinks situations. That's for sure.
I think you got so much to give to these kids coming up, because you're so brutally honest. You don't like being honest, I can tell. Like when we talked earlier before camera, you said, I don't like getting into conversations and people start fucking saying you know it all, blah blah. But mate, you're very knowledgeable and you're very well experienced, and you should be passing this on to kids coming up, and you should be involved in the game or involved in something with mental. Oh, are you involved at all with any clubs or
I think
programs?
For a while there, I kind of became the poster boy for it, and it kind of really became really draining, Fidel. Like, it was hearing a lot of bad stories and stories about kids that had a far tougher upbringing than myself, and it was really sad. And it took a toll on me, taking it home with me all the time. I had a lot of people messaging me on Instagram, on Facebook, just really people in dark places, and I really just need to step away from it for a bit, and I couldn't detach from the stories I was hearing, and it became draining, very, very draining. And I wasn't living a perfect lifestyle either. So unless I'm living the perfect lifestyle, I don't want to be telling people not to do something that I'm potentially doing, So when I was completely sober, no drinking or anything like that for 2014 going into 15, I was happy to be at the forefront. But then when I wanted to be relaxed, and then I was going out to these communities, talking to kids and trying to give them advice, I felt like a bit of a hypocrite. And on top of that, like I just said, it became very draining hearing a lot of negative stories. But at the same time, it was, I don't know what the word is to use, but just so many people would flood me with emotion and thank me for speaking up, that it did make me feel good about it. It's something that will always be, that I'll carry with me and that I do want to be involved with. Gary Carden, who's at the Bulldogs, he rings me up to come down and speak to a few of the 20s kids. I love doing that. I love going out. I don't want a full-time role in it, but I'd love if someone calls me up. I'll always go out of my way or to jump in my car and go and meet with any kids that need any sort of conversation. And that's something I'm proud to do, but I kind of had to step away from it for the last few years, and I'm sort of going back into it now, where I'll take that phone call and say, "Yep, I'll come and help out," because it does become very taxing on your mind and emotionally. And it's something you don't want to be remembered for either. I feel like they remember me for my football, not for the mental health side of things. But that goes hand in hand. That's the stupid mentality that I have sometimes, or I overthink a situation where you go, well, people do remember you for your talent on the field, but you had some drama. You could help with.
But you could save lives, bro, and that's how. Have you got kids? Have you got kids?
Nah, no kids. None that I know.
Not that you know about, yeah. But it's something that you learn as you have children. It's sometimes, as much as it fucking kills you, you just got to keep on helping and keep on doing. Because I run the biggest rugby club for women in Australia, right? I've got 150 daughters. They're my daughters. They're not my players. They're my daughters. I know them all. I know everything about them. And the shit I got to deal with these girls, mate, you wouldn't understand it. Where to start, where to finish. And I've grown up with 3 boys in my family.
Yeah.
So to me, it's I don't understand women. Right? I'm a fucking man's man. But I got to turn up every day, and I got to keep on helping them, and because I know personally I've saved a couple of their lives.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you have children, and you'll get this as you get a little bit more older, it's like, you know what? You won't be known for your footy, but fuck, man, what you can do to help someone save their life. Didn't you wish you had someone next to you when you're going through the shit?
Oh, absolutely. And I did have people next to me, but I just didn't realise that. That's the thing. When you're in that sort of zone, you don't realise that there are people next to you, and you just don't reach out and ask for that help. But going back to, I've got 9 nieces and nephews. It scares the hell out of me. They're all young, and not only do I have 9 nieces and nephews, I've got godchildren. I've got Sutto's kids. I've got my best friend's kids. They're all family, and like to see what's going on in the community now, especially around Maroubra, around the eastern suburbs. It's fucking scary. It's scary. You know, a couple of my my niece, they're all going through that period where they're going from primary into high school, and you can almost see it play out what's going to happen over the next 5, 6, 7 years in their lives, even going into their 20s. So it is. I have an obligation for my family and for people in the wider community to help out where I can. I do get that. I do understand that. I just need to have a break from it, like we may talk before. I just need to step away from it a bit, and then I'm ready to come back now because there's so many things I'm working out for myself. Because if I'm not healthy in my mind, then I'm in no position to help someone else.
Help someone else. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Well, look, we're at the end of it. I've got a 1 minute wonder. It's called 1 minute wonder. So I'm going to ask you some questions, and you've got to give me an answer with the first thing that comes to your mind.
Oh, jeez.
It's easy. Don't worry.
Right, let's go.
The best player you've played alongside? Here you go. You don't want to hurt no one's feelings. Just fucking say it.
No. I'll tell you the most talented player I've ever seen in my life. I played alongside him is Jared Hayne. We won't go into anything else. Jared Hayne is the most talented player I've ever seen on a.
He's so good at everything, ain't the prick?
Look, without getting into how good he could have been, he's talent-wise, so you sit back and go, what the fuck was that? I had Sonny Bill, I had Thurston. Yeah. I had Sonny Bill, I had Jonathan Thurston. What Jared Hayne could do at training he's definitely the most talented I'd ever seen.
Well, who's the best player you've played against?
Best player I played against, I played alongside, but I played against a lot of his career, Thurston. I think his competitiveness. I got to play against Joey Johns as well, but at the back end of his career. But yeah, definitely Thursday.
The toughest player you've played against or with?
Marco Mealy.
Marco Mealy. Fuck, I haven't heard of him for a while. How's he doing? You speak to him?
Mate, I speak to him. He's about $130. He's huge. His head's massive. He's an old school. I actually had a laugh with Millie Mason the other day. I said, can you imagine doing a TikTok video like all these NRL players are doing now and having to look Marco Mealy in the eye the next day at training? It just wouldn't fly with it. It wouldn't fly with someone like the ogre. Mate, he's cut from the old cloth.
The grumpiest player you've played against?
Grumpiest. Oh,
Grubbiest.
Grumpiest is Nathan Hindmarsh. Oh, Grubbiest. Grubby. Grubbiest. Oh, shit. There's a few grubs. Oh, man. You know who was a grub? Who was the back rower's name? Bo Scott. All due respect to him. But he was an animal. You wouldn't want to fuck around with him, but he was a grub, but all respect to him. Good player.
One regret about your career?
Where do we start? Not playing Origin.
Yeah. Best player in the game today?
Best player in the game today. Who do I enjoy watching play? Fuck, there's so many. Rattle off some names.
Fuck, I don't know. I still think Cameron Smith's the best player in the game. That's what I reckon.
Yeah, look, Smitty's he's got the game wide. I think he's definitely the best player in the game still. I like Fafita, David Fafita. I'm a big fan of him.
Lot of energy, eh?
Just a fucking animal. Like I've never seen back row. I haven't seen a back row like him since Gordon Tallis.
I still think he's got a bit more in him, to be honest.
Oh, absolutely.
If he buckled down a bit more.
He doesn't understand the game yet. He's just a young bull that just give him the ball, go out there and play it. When he understands the game and when he can come in and out of it and be more destructive and find out where he can play in pockets of the game, he'll be the best forward in the last 10 years.
Their forward pack's unbelievable. It's like your forward pack in 04.
They're just missing a couple of older heads. That forward pack is they stick together, they'll be dominant. They'll be another Melbourne Storm. They'll win 5 premierships, 4 premierships. Animals.
Well, who's the most overrated player in the game? No one answers this.
Fuck. Oh, man. No,
no one answers it. No one answers it.
Nah, anyone. was going to think, who can I take the piss out of? But no, anyone that takes that field is definitely rated in my books.
Next champs of the NRL.
I think the Broncos. I've got massive raps on them. I was very critical of them last year. I think they lacked direction. I think Brady Croft, if he stays fit, they're my smokies for the premiership. I think obviously a lot of luck comes into it, and they're a very young, inexperienced side. But what I liked about the Broncos in the first two games, is that they had a fifth tackle option, and that's Brady Croft. They had a better kicking game, and then off the back of that, you've got a far better side, and it made Milford become a better 5'8". So I think Broncos are my smokies.
Yeah, their halves combinations fucking picked up. It's only been lacking for a couple of years. Just no cohesion there, but it looks really good.
There's no fifth tackle options. Milford frees him up. I think they're the smokies for me.
All right, well, a couple of fight questions. Tim Zoo or Jeff Horn?
Tim Zoo.
Khabib or Ferguson, if it finally ever happens?
Whoa, that's fucking mouth-watering, man. I love Ferguson. You always... Man, if anyone could do it, it's Ferguson. It's just, I mean, the way Khabib just controls people on the ground, but he's never fought anyone like Ferguson who can fight off his back. So, I'd like to see Ferguson win that. He's gone through a few mental health things himself. I love Khabib. He's a great champion, but I actually would love to see Ferguson retire with winning the belt at least once, without being a
interim.
An interim belt, yeah. I'd like to see him hold the title at least once.
Tyson Fury or AJ?
I've watched a lot of AJ's training lately, and I think his improvement as a boxer is just gone through the roof. He's very robotic, and as you know, and Tyson's so fucking relaxed, and he just moves around like a middleweight for a big guy. But
beautiful.
He's great to watch. Oh, shit, that's a tough one. I like them both. I'd probably like AJ to win.
Yeah. Tyson's the best, my favourite boxer since Least. I love him.
I love him. I can't get it. I love his character and everything he's about. I don't mind AJ, and I like what he does for his community and just the fucking pressure that kid's had since he's been in the Olympics. I mean, everyone just wants to see that bloke fail. He's had a lot of critics, but I like where his boxing's going, and especially how he's trimmed down as a fighter, and he's moving a lot better. I'd like to see him beat Fury.
He finally started using his jab against Ruiz. Thank fuck.
Yeah.
Last question, the most important.
Yep.
Who wins in a street fight? A striker or a takedown?
Oh, fuck. No one expects to get taken down in a street fight. So if you know what you're doing on the ground, you get taken down, and you don't know what you're doing on the ground, then you're going to get fucking beat up pretty bad. So I'd say someone that's can take you to the ground would probably beat up someone that's a striker.
That's such a fucking Maroubra thing to say, bro.
I don't even do jiu. Oh, fuck, I don't know. What do I know about fighting? I'm a lover, brother. That's it.
Oh, you're a lover. All right. Reni, brother, thanks for your time, bro. It was a bit longer than what I thought, but mate, some great things. Awesome work what you're doing, man. Like what you've done previously in the sense mentally and for the game. It's huge, and it'll only be seen bigger in the next couple of years, man. So be proud of yourself. Be proud of your career, man. And I owe you a couple of beers, eh?
Yeah, let's do it soon, eh? As soon as this lockdown's over, we're down Rugby pub. But
whenever you have for a sesh as well, mate, come up. Make sure we have a couple of rounds of the pads.
100%. That sounds perfect, brother. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Ren. You're a legend, brother. Speak to you soon.
Good on you, my man.
Bye, mate. See ya.
See you, bud.